Welcome, everybody. We're going to generally follow the order of service. It's like church, where normally everybody sits in the back or whatever, and everybody's on this side. We are going to start. We originally imagined all going up to where the chestnut trees are, but we decided to have Carl come to you. So you'll see we're going to start with some initial learning and context, and then Nancy and I will offer the service with others. So Carl.
Okay.
And we are not mic'd today, so we are going to do our very best to project.
Okay.
It is a mic? Oh, would you like us by that mic then for the camera? Yeah, go on up by the mic, Carl. You're in charge.
Okay.
And allow the recording it.
Well, Diane and I revised the Memorial Woodland Manual to incorporate the American chestnut tree. We called it the Dick Hawkins tree. So the manual, you'll look through there later on, but it's the description of the American chestnut tree is on page 13. But to give you a little background, the idea for preparing this manual came from Vita Marley. She was in Salt Lake City. She went to a UU church there, and they had a manual, a tree identification manual. So the Green Sanctuary Committee got the idea, and we ran with it. And being a pointy-headed scientist, I adopted the protocol that Virginia Tech Forestry School had for their identification of trees. And I followed that protocol in the manual. But the challenge for me was to put all the description and the photographs on a single page. So that was a challenge in and of itself. But if you look at the manual, there are 20 species in the manual. And but 2 of them are native to the eastern part of the U.S. Ginkgo and crepe myrtle. Those were trees that are actually planted in this area before we put in the memorial garden. So everything else is native to the eastern part of the U.S. except ginkgo and crepe myrtle. And Diane and I labeled not all the trees, but 2 or 3 of each species. And we followed the protocol for labeling trees. In other words, we put the common name and then the scientific name underneath that on the label. And you'll see the trees that are labeled, I followed that protocol. But the American chestnut tree that we have up here is actually an ongoing experiment. I went to Frederick, Maryland, and I had contacted people from the American Chestnut Foundation, and they had seedlings to give. So I got 2 seedlings for us, and Diane and I planted those here last spring. And as I say, it's an ongoing experiment because one of the trees is a native American chestnut with natural resistance to the blight. But there's a hybrid up there that you can see is doing quite well. So the genetic work is panning out. However, the American chestnut blight was introduced to the U.S. in 1904, and it decimated the American chestnut throughout the entire eastern U.S. It was the major tree species for people, pioneers, settlers. They used it for everything. And it's in the description on page 13. As I say, that's an ongoing experiment. As most of you know, I'm moving from Chestertown to a place near Frederick. And I'm asking Diane to keep me posted on the status of these trees. Because if they die, I'll replace them. But I'll have to make a special trip to replace the trees.
Well, I also want to
welcome everybody who came out today. Thank you. This, I think, as you know, came up a partisan idea of All Saints Day, which is tomorrow, but also apparently the Day of the Dead, and the All Saints is more saints, but it's become a time to remember those who have gone before us, those we've lost, and a nice time to use our memorial garden and recognize the forest, which actually is 10 years old, right, Carl, I think?
Right.
So, and Kevin Bryan was a generous benefactor of this memorial garden, and Carl and Diane and others have worked hard to identify the trees that should be planted and get them planted and prune them and care for them. So there's a lot of love and effort and support for this group that has gone in to this area, as well as remembering the people that we've lost in our congregation that are here remembered. Someone told me that it's a quote, but I don't remember from who, but the things that we sorrow over, the losses that we sorrow over, we have to remember that those were the things that brought us some of our greatest joys, too, in life. So we come here not to be sad, but to remember and to be grateful for those who have been part of our lives. And with that, I will ring the gong, because it's like, it'd be so pretty out here in the woods. And I will try to light the chalice. And we'll say the words, our normal words. We'll light this chalice, maybe, for...
Light it first.
Yeah.
One step at a time.
Oh, I tried this in though. Okay. Okay. We'll do it again quickly. We light this chalice for the light in all creation. We light this chalice for truth. May the search for truth be with us always. We light this chalice for love. May the love for others be strong in our hearts.
There's a mic in here somewhere? Can you hear it? Does that help? Okay. It only helps for the Zoom camera. It does nothing. You are not being projected. Your best girl felt
Okay.
Well, the overall concept of the UUCR Memorial Woodland came from our concept for landscaping at UUCR, which is to provide a natural, aesthetically pleasing, healthy environment for church activities, community stewardship, and for the wildlife. This includes reducing lawn area using primarily native trees, shrubs, and herbaceous cover, while minimizing fertilizer and pesticide applications, and providing shade and cover for wildlife. In April 2009, the idea of the Memorial Garden was discussed among the congregation. The Green Sanctuary Committee favored a woodland garden concept because trees supply oxygen, shade, erosion and sediment control, habitat and food for birds and many other species. The original native vegetation on the eastern shore was woodlands, so this would be an ecological restoration of sorts. The Memorial Garden proposal was signed in January 28, 2011, and in March 2011, it was installed along with the Memorial Garden structure here by Unity Landscaping.
Michael Jensen is the proprietor of that organization. And his mother, Dorothy Jensen, was one of the founding members here at UUCR. But in 2016, we went back and labeled the trees. And it's doing well. I mean, these trees are only 10 years old, and it was just grass before. It's got a complete canopy cover. If you look on the ground, you'll see lots of acorns and things for the animals to eat. And I always see birds flying in and out, and a few cats. But that's our history. Most of this is in your little booklet too. So.
Continuing as a pointy-headed scientist, we wanted to make the manual self-contained and to tell the story of the area where UUCR is located. So what we did was we included a description of the Chesapeake Bay and the Chesapeake Bay watershed, and that's on page 7. You can follow along if you'd like, but also a description of the Chester River watershed. So as far as the Chesapeake Bay watershed is concerned, native forests of eastern North America, where the Chesapeake Bay is located, are found within the deciduous forest formation. With some exceptions, the formation is characterized by the predominance of deciduous trees. There are some pines, like the loblolly pine here, slash pine in this area, but mostly the deciduous trees are native to the eastern U.S. The Chesapeake Bay is the largest estuary in the United States. It is about 200 miles long, and its tributaries cover some 4,500 square miles of water. The Chesapeake Bay watershed covers about 68,500 square miles in parts of 6 states: Delaware, Maryland, New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia. And the District of Columbia is in there as well. So going to the Chester River watershed, Chester River is the major tributary of the Chesapeake Bay on the Delmarva Peninsula. And there's a picture of the Chester River watershed on page 9. But the river itself is about 43 miles long, and the watershed encompasses 368 square miles. It forms the border between Kent County and Queen Anne's County. And then on page 9, you see the watershed itself. There are 3 estuaries that are distinguished in the Chester River watershed. The lower Chester estuary, you can see on the image there on page 9. The upper Chester estuary and the middle estuary. So just so you get an idea of the environment and habitat where this woodland is located.
So we've got the mic here, and then I've got people on both sides. So I'm going to stand just back far enough and be pretty close to shouting. When we were doing a little planning meeting on Monday, we talked about whether this was a service for the people who had died, for the ancestors, or if it was about the environment, the trees, the land. And the answer was it's absolutely both, because they're not separate. I know I'm way more aware today of the sound that these trees are making. The sounds, Jan and I talked at a service a couple weeks about all those who have inhabited these lands before us. Thousands of years. Lots of nature. So We're going to do this in 2 segments, but I ask, we all are together to think of connections. Connections to those who have been lost in the congregation. Some of where there's a brick, some there aren't. Those in our own lives. We've got recent losses and losses that go back further. And to consider how it is all connected with nature, with our environment, and that fabric connecting it all. Some may call it God, some may call it love, but there is something that we can't quite explain that connects it all. And that is what this next segment is to honor. So I invite Pat Bjorky and Diane Shields are going to come forward, and they're going to slowly read the names on the bricks first, and Diane will ring the gong. And then we will also have a chance to each of us share ancestors and friends and families' names. So we're going to do it in 2 chunks, and I invite Diane and Pat forward.
When we were first designing the concept of our memorial garden, we wanted some way to inscribe the names of those we have lost. And we went through a number of different design ideas, and finally I think it was Michael Jensen, the designer, the owner of Unity Landscaping, who came up with the idea of inscribing their names in the bricks along the outer edge of this area where we are today. It's a lovely way for us to remember the members and friends who have gone before us. In many cultures throughout the world, it is believed that those who have passed away are never truly gone until their names are no longer spoken. It is my honor to keep our friends and members present with us today. Peter Tafke, Stephen Hitchner, Mariana Hitchner, John Cup, Phoebe Cup, Rowena Mullins, Maggie Duncan, Raymond L. Beard, Virginia Schoenfeld, Kai Sung An, Jean Gold Wick, Ann Hennessy, Sheila Gallegos, Harvey Savely, Balsora Savely, Ann Morrison Gay, David Sharp, Tom Leonard, Robin Abel, David Hilton, Tom Kerr, Lois Ward, Alice Lindsay, Dick Hawkins, Reverend Dan Higgins.
We are a small enough group today. I would invite everyone to come and stand along the circle, giving a little bit of space. Maybe stand about even with the water pump around the whole edge. And we're going to have a chance to call out some other names. COVID-wise, come as you're comfortable. But if we spread out and go to the full circle, I think we will have do not have a huge group here today, so I think we can just sort of slowly, every few seconds, call out a name, especially make space for the most recent losses. And as Pat said, we do not need to rush through this. All these names are heard, and they're heard when they're in your hearts and said aloud. So as you're comfortable, call out a name. We won't be ringing the gong at this point, but the name will be spoken into the circle. Annie Wilmer, Builder Hawkins. Builder Hawkins. 7
Jim Barry.
Alan Sony. Peter Charles. Fred Yurick.
Taylor Wild, my grandson.
Dick Hawkins.
Bruce Levin, my friend's brother.
Hannah Bedwell, my granddaughter.
Marjorie Gephardt. Jimmy Holland.
Alex Geisert, my nephew.
Sheila Gallegos. Lane Buckridge.
Make space for the parents we have lost. The grandparents. The siblings. Children. Colleagues. Neighbors. Friends. Christina Thumbsplitter. Names will come to you for a while for the next day. I ask Catherine Brooks now to do a reading as we stand here in circle.
I'm going to do a reading written by Sylvan Kamens and Rabbi Jeff Reimer that has a phrase, and then I'll pause and say, "We remember them." If you'd like to join in on the "We remember them," please do. At the rising sun and at its going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are part of us, and we will remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember them. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we will remember them. When we have joy we crave to share, we will remember them. When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we will remember them. For as long as we live, they too will live, for they are part of us, and we will remember them.
So we close recognizing that we are not any random community that just gathered today to do this. This is an intentional community that has been gathering in many forms over the last 30 years. We form communities like this to hold the lives, the memories, and those next generations that are coming. Our closing blessing today are words from Wendell Berry, the larger circle. We clasp the hands of those that go before us and the hands of those that come after us. We enter the little circle of each other's arms and the larger circle of lovers whose hands are joined in a dance, and the larger circle of all creatures passing in and out of life who move also in a dance to a music so subtle and vast that no ear can hear it, except in fragments. The fragments we've gathered today, the blessing of being together on this fall afternoon, we are holding so much, so gently in love. We're going to extinguish our chalice now. I think God did that for us. Nancy will help, and then Carl will offer some words of the woodlands.
So we extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of the community, the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again.
And now we have tours of the woodland and social time wherever you would like to be social.
Just before we start going around the woodland, as I mentioned, this woodland was established 10 years ago, but there were trees already here. The ginkgo and the crepe myrtle were already planted in this area. And the first tree planted in this woodland was for David Hilton. And it's a great big willow oak over there. It's maybe 2 years older than the rest, 12, 13 years old. But this is a site where trees grow extremely well. These trees are 10 years old, and look at the size of them. But as you go around looking at the woodland, take a look at the labels. As I said, the common name is on the top of the label, and then the scientific name. And you'll see the description of these trees in the manual. But just looking around here now, you look at the river oak, the river birch. See that flaky bark? The sycamore with the flaky bark. And the willow oak is the smooth bark. But take a look at these things and walk around. If you have any questions, ask Diane or I. But it's a pleasure having all of you here today and to honor this woodland. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.